Welcome to TC Config Studios. My name is Joseph, and I'll be your host for today. If you've been following along, we just got done stepping through the branding wizard, and we're sitting at the system dashboard waiting for what we're going to do next, which is step actually through the licensing wizard and then deploying the policies. Now, if you had to step away and you've logged out, to get back to where we are, all you need to do is go to customer.tc-config.com, log in with your Entra ID, and you should be sitting at the system dashboard. So right now, as you can see, we don't have any deployed policies. And so what we're going to do is before we can deploy the policies, what we need to do is we need to go buy the policy deployment license. So we're going to go out and I'm going to go I'm switching tabs back to my Entra tab. And then from there, I'm going to hit the hamburger menu. And I'm going to choose dashboard. I'm going to click on Marketplace. We'll let that load up. Now, in the search the Marketplace, you would just type in tc-config, and it will search for it and bring it up. I need to go in a little bit of a different way. I need to go to private plans. And this way, when I choose it, I don't get charged for when I do these demos. So we're going to do tc-config. I'm going to click on that. Now, we already did the foundation. That's the level of access or the license that you currently have right now. So we're going to drop this down, and then you're going to choose the policy deployment wizard. I'm going to choose, I have a few more choices here, right? Like I said before, the only choices you'll see is the Dev Foundation and the Policy Deployment Wizard. I happen to have all these other choices, so I'm going to choose the Dev Policy Deployment Wizard. That way I don't get charged, like I said. Click Subscribe. We're going to come up, and I'm going to go ahead and choose the same resource group I used when I originally did the Foundation license. For the name, you're going to want to maybe give it TC config policy, something like that. For me, I'm just going to use the date. Click Next on tags. Now, if your company uses tags, this is where you'd put them in. Click Next, Review, and Subscribe. And then click Subscribe. Now, Azure is going to go out and set up the software on its side, set up that billing piece of it, set up everything on its side. So we just have to be patient and wait. It doesn't take too long usually. Now that we have that done, we're going to go ahead and click on Configure Your Account. And this will start the onboarding wizard. So it looks very similar to what we've seen before when we were doing the foundation. And it doesn't take too long. And there we go. We are welcome to TC config. So we've successfully done that. And now it's being redirected back to our tenant and to the TC config SaaS application. Now we can kind of see our account settings. We see that our plan type now has changed from foundation to policy deployment wizard. We have the policy deployment wizard purchased, before we actually go deploy the policies, before we go do that deploy config, we're going to just jump out real fast to our Entra admin portal. Now, this is something I'm doing just to show you guys. You'll see that I only have 3 groups set up out here. If I go over to Intune, so the Intune Admin Center, so intune.microsoft.com. For configuration, you'll see that I don't have any configuration items. I'll click on compliance. There's no compliance policies here, and conditional access. There's no conditional access policies. Before we jump back over to the customer portal, we're also going to go to security.microsoft.com, also known as the Defender admin portal. We're going to click on show navigation. Now, this will be something you'll want to do in your environment. Click on system, settings, then you're going to look to see if you have endpoints set here. Now, if it's here, that means you have licensing for this. If it's not here, then you don't have the licensing for it. Or it could be that you have not started the provisioning process for that yet inside Microsoft. So, but you're going to click on endpoints. And then on this advanced features, we're just going to scroll down, and it's at the bottom. We're just going to scroll all the way down. And then you're going to want to flip this from off to on underneath Microsoft Intune connection. Now we're going to go to our customer portal. We're going to click on deploy config. They'll do a readiness check for us. You see that my recommended deployment is Microsoft 365 Business Premium. Go with the whatever's recommended. There is this select an alternate security configuration. This is for if somebody's doing certain type of testing, they might want to do something like this. So we'll drop that down just so you can see what's there. You can see that my choices is going to be a subset of policies that my licensing would allow me for. So I could do just an Intune plus Entra IDP1. I could just do policies for an Entra IDP1 only, or just some policies for Exchange Online only. Don't be fooled by the policy count here, because policy counts here don't necessarily mean better, right? So under Microsoft 365 Business Premium, there might be less policies than 245, but that's because we don't have to try to stitch together different policy groups to get the coverage that's needed. So always just go with that recommended configuration. We've seen this before, our branding customization, branding logos. We're just going to go ahead and leave those off because we've already done our branding deployment. Now, we could flip them on and it wouldn't hurt anything. It would just redeploy the branding. Security policies, that's what we're deploying. Now, for device type scope, we have the choices of the devices that would be in our environment. Only choose the devices that you actually use in your environment. You can always come back in and add policies for other device types. If you're like, right now we just have Windows, and 6 months from now we're going to add iPhones, right? Well, just do Windows, and then 6 months later come back in and add the iPhone stuff. I'm just going to go ahead and flip off Mac OS and Linux. This is kind of the configuration that I see most in a lot of the customers I work with. We'll do next. Now we're going to go out and we're going to deploy groups into our Entra environment. The policies are assigned to groups, and so we need to create those groups. We'll click verify groups. It's going to go out and check to see if I have any of them created already. It says I'm missing 46 because I don't have any of them created. So we'll do a create missing groups. I'm going to slide this timer over here. Now, creating groups does not take very long. That was less than a minute. We're going to come out with our review deployment. We're going to do a Microsoft 365 Business Premium as our licensing scenario. There's approximately 198 policies that could be deployed because of our device scopes that we've chosen. It doesn't necessarily mean that there will be 198 policies. Some of it kind of depends on some of the fine details of your licensing and also kind of what country you might be in. Now, before we click our start deployment, because I'm curious, I want to see how long this deployment is going to take. I did put a timer on the screen. We'll start that, and then we will go ahead and start our deployment. And so in the back end, what this is doing is going out and it's taking a look at your environment, is seeing what all should be there as far as your exact licensing. In Microsoft licensing, we see Microsoft Business Premium, but really that Business Premium is made up of a package of a lot of different service principles. And so we're actually going out and parsing those service principles to see exactly what your environment is allowed to have. And then we're working and building the policies for that. When our development team and big brains were working all that, they decided that was kind of the best way to go about it. That way, this stays flexible. So no matter what Microsoft does in the future with licensing, and in fact, here in a month and a half from now, so, Microsoft is going to be redoing the licensing and pricing, and so that will change some of those SKUs maybe. And so this way, we don't have to worry about that. And let's see, we're at a minute and 34 seconds, and we've already deployed 97 of these policies. I would challenge anybody who works on Microsoft and doing Microsoft policies in 365 to do that many policies in this amount of time. Won't happen. This is one of the business values for this is time savings. One of the other business values for this is that your deployment is going to be not a mismatch of things. It's going to be well thought out, and you're going to end up with something that it's going to be really simple. It's going to be, I want this policy applied to this person, so you're going to add that person to this type of group. Or I want this type of policy applied to these devices, so you're going to add those devices to that group. So, all right, our policy's done, and I really wasn't watching the time. It was about 2 minutes and 40 seconds or so. We did 136 successful deployments of policies. We skipped 18 of those policies, and there are some reasons why the skips will happen. We'll see that in a second, because we can go in there and we can look to see what the skip is. And so we can go ahead and just click on View Results. Then if we had fails, we can click on this Failed tab here, and it'll tell us what failed. We can click on the Skip tab, And it says, okay, 18 policies were skipped due to licensing or service plan requirements. Very high level explanation, but we'll be able to get more details here in a second. So we can do the close wizard. And now we're back at our system dashboard. And all of those zeros that we saw here before, now we actually have information in. So what we'll be able to do is, if we want to just see our Windows policies as an example, we can just click on the Windows there. It automatically does our sort down here for Windows. We can further refine that to a type of policy that we're wanting to see. And so we'll do a conditional access. And then here's all of our conditional access policies that were deployed into our environment. So that's kind of how you use that screen, right? Skipped. So we can come down here and we can click on the skip tile. And this gives us the actual detail of what was skipped. Some of these policies that we have built out here they're here so that if your environment does or has the necessary backend pieces built into it, then the policy will deploy. Some of the stuff is like this Intune Cloud High configuration Wi-Fi profile. The policies here, it's not something we can actually set in your environment, but it is something that once you do get it set, you have a template of what that policy should be. So like in this profile, you have to add in some of your SID information and stuff like that, something that's not scriptable by us to even know what it would be. So things like that. And you see a lot of it happens to be the Wi-Fi policies, right? So these are just kind of more or less out here as a template for you guys. And there's some registration campaign stuff that Microsoft isn't letting us do right at this moment. It's not supported via the Graph API yet. So we'll close those. Let's go ahead and explore a little bit more. So we're just going to click on iPad policies. And I need to get rid of this timer because I just don't like it. And so we can take a look at this policy here. It's just the first, it's a conditional access policy. We can just click actions on it. And it'll bring up some more information about these policies. It'll tell us kind of what the security level that's been assigned for it. It tells us what service plan we need for it. So AAD premium. We can click on technical information. And this, the policy ID isn't something that's for us really, but you can see what this JSON looks like. We're including user groups, we're excluding some groups, we're excluding the tenant global admin role. We're including all applications in it. And then we have our MFA control. So if you ever have a question about, what's built into that policy, this is one way you can go look. You can also just go back out to your Intune portal. And we were here before. And we're just going to go click back on configuration. We can see that we now have all of these policies out here. We can click on compliance. And we can see that we have all of our different compliance policies out here to go with all these different devices that we chose. Now we can go to conditional access. So I clicked on conditional access policies. We can see that we have several out here, 38 to be exact. We wanted, if we need to change something or we wanted to change something, we could just go in and we can click on the policy just like you would any other time, right? And we'll let that load up. And we can take a look at our assignments. We can take a look at the targets. It says specific users included and specific users excluded. So we'll take a look at that. And we can see that it is going to include Intune Android corporate user high security. If we wanted to, put this policy on users, we would just go back to our groups. And we're going to refresh our screen here. It's kind of really divided around the device types. If we wanted to, whether it's a user group or a device group, it's generally around the device type. So we could do iPhone, or we were doing iPad. So we'll do iPad. And then we can see that we have some device groups here for iPad. And if we do look at iPhone, we'll see that we have some device groups here. And if we do iOS, we'll see that we have all of our user groups. The iPhone and iPad is pretty much the one exception to that, because the devices were divided, but the actual user piece of that, Microsoft only recognizes iOS on the inside. So they just combined those two groups instead of having basically redundant security groups out here for the users. They just combined it as iOS. And you'll see that we have our Intune iOS, bring your own device user basic security, and then our corporate user basic security. The difference here is if your environment is allowing bring your own devices, we have some policies that will apply to those. And again, so it's labeled as BYOD. Corporate users, are labeled as corporate. And then we have our different security levels. We have basic security, enhanced security, and then the high security. So your high security individuals are going to have a lot more policies applied and stricter restrictions on them. So you're going to this is the policy group where your C-level executives should be sitting. They should always have the high security policies applied to them. The basic security are going to, really be for some frontline workers that their device abilities are pretty limited. Wanting to add a user to the bring your own device user basic security, we would just go into the group. And then we would, just go add a user to it. When the deployment wizard creates the groups, it goes ahead and it pulls out the global admins and adds them as the group owners as it creates those groups. It's an extra step that you don't need to do. Microsoft recommendation is that you always have a owner of the group, a policy, anything like that should always have an owner to it. Now for group membership, we know there's nobody in there. We have 0, so we need to add one. So we'll just click manage members. And again, this is just my test tenant, so there's not really any users in here other than me. And right now, Microsoft is thinking too hard. We all know how that works. So you just add the person to the group. Before we start our wrap up, there's one thing that we need to do after we deploy the policies. We need to flip back over to our Intune Admin Center. Then we're going to go to Endpoint Security, Microsoft Defender for Endpoint. And then we're going to, if that is off under endpoint security profile settings, we're going to want to turn that to on. And then we'll also want to flip these to be on for the devices that we have put into our environment. So once you turn them all to on, then you just save. And it'll save that connector. And it also then enables that connector. We went over buying the policy deployment wizard license. We went through deploying the configuration. We talked about going into one of the policies that was deployed, going underneath actions, and then looking at what the JSON actually looks like for that. Then we went over into both our Entra admin tab and looked at the changes that had been done there. And then we went into our Intune admin tab and looked at the policies there. Once we got done with our deployment, we did go back over to our Intune Admin Center, endpoint security, and we went to the Microsoft Defender for endpoint, and we turned on the toggle switches to make sure that we implemented the security into our environment. Thank you for joining us. Have a great day.